And welcome once again as we do another ESPN FC Facebook Live. Joining me is Brian McBride, his first Facebook Live. Brian,
Second.
Second? You did one without me.
I did, but that was a long time ago. It was with Max.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
that's tough to live up to. Anyways, but Brazil did live up to their expectations. They are through to the quarterfinals of this World Cup following a 2-0 win over Mexico. Best believe I saw a lot of U.S. fans tweeting 2-0, which is probably throwing salt in the wounds, but still a very spirited performance from Mexico, a very spirited run overall. But let's start off with Brazil because they had been labeled as favorites to win this World Cup, one of the favorites at least to win this World Cup, and there were always a question mark. So we saw what happened to Germany. We've seen what happened to Spain.
Sure.
Brazil now, how are they looking for you? How do you feel they handled this game?
Yeah, they're looking real good. Nothing's changed that. I think that they handled this game pretty well. I think Mexico put them under pressure a lot more than they thought in the first 15 minutes of that match.
Which was risky.
It was very risky. But Mexico, they took a ton of risks throughout. If you look at every single free kick and corner kick, they just went man-to-man and left. They were hoping what they were trying to do is they were trying to catch Brazil on a counter. Weren't able to do that, of course, but I was surprised that Brazil didn't try and float a few balls, right around the penalty spot and just say, I'm going to go and win it. And but going back to how Mexico played and how Brazil looked under that pressure, they looked pretty calm. And there wasn't many times when you saw them just, kicking it long. I was surprised plenty of times they were passing it through their own penalty area with that pressure. So I think you saw Brazil very comfortable throughout. There was times when Mexico was actually able to put some pressure on it and get a half opportunity, a shot from distance. But overall, Brazil looked really well.
Would you say Brazil are peaking just at the right time of the tournament?
That's tough to say because there hasn't been really a lot of question marks asked of Brazil to this point. 4 shots on goal? Allison saves 3 of them, so only 1 goal against. I still think there's still teams out there that are going to provide a little bit more of a competition and really be able to break down Brazil a little bit better than Mexico. And I'm not saying Mexico didn't, throw every caution to the wind. They did. But, you look at Belgium, you look at a possibility of France. Those teams, I think, have a little bit more going forward than what Mexico has as a group.
All right, well, guys, of course, since this is Facebook Live and we are taking all of your questions, don't be shy. Send in those questions. Brian is here. Put him under some pressure. He loves to tackle all of these questions. I know I have asked them also on Twitter. And Brian, as you can imagine, with how Brazil is going, and like you said, there's not much to criticize them on, but no team is perfect. So we'll probably try to bring up some of the stuff you would have liked to see them do better. But some are already looking ahead because there is another game that has to be played today, and that is Belgium-Japan. And again, on paper, it looks like we can easily, with our eyes closed, say Belgium. But we know how this World Cup has been going, but at least today seems to be going as many would have predicted. So say Belgium do get through, Brian. What would you like to see Brazil do or change in order to come up against them? Do you think they will be that test that you've talked about that will pressure them more than, say, Mexico or some of the others in the group did?
Yeah, I think Belgium has a few more attacking options. They've got the physicality with Lukaku. Eden Hazard can run at players with the ball at their feet. And I thought Mexico did a pretty good job of that. I thought Carlos Vela played very well. When he switched from left to right, he didn't have as much influence. Certainly had more of the ball, but he wasn't really getting to positions near the end of the field to be able to put balls in the penalty area. And I think Belgium has the wherewithal to keep possession a little bit more. But I also don't see Belgium pressing the way Mexico pressed Brazil. So maybe you'll have a little bit more space to play into and run into.
All right, we're going to try and not put, the carriage in front of the horse. Yeah, we still have to let Belgium play. But let's take some more questions coming in about Brazil. Bob wants to know, do you think Brazil can win it all without Marcelo? Marcelo, of course, sitting his whole time on the bench today. But when you look at who Brazil have coming off the bench, you would think that they could risk that, but could they?
Yeah, listen, Felipe Luis is an excellent left back himself, but certainly you don't get as much going forward without Marcelo. That was a surprise to me. And when they said it was back spasms, usually back spasms caused by, you're off alignment in your back or your hips are, and you have 5 days to fix that. To me, I think that they were probably just holding him out as a precaution. I would imagine if it is back spasms and it's not something else, that he'd be back for them.
I know. I mean,
that would be
one
my
person
guess.
you'd like to have. It's definitely Marcel. Ritesh wants to know, who was your best player today? I know earlier on in one of our hits you mentioned Willian. Was he your standout player today?
He was. He was for sure. And it had to do in the first half more with breaking that pressure. As soon as he was able to break that pressure a little bit, you saw an extra midfielder had to come over and support, and that's when you saw Coutinho was able to drift off from Marquez. Eventually, that's why you see Marquez be substituted, because it was just happening too much after that 25th minute period. I think Willian was not only good in that period, but any time he needed to take a player on, he made sure that he put a defender on his heels. He did a great job of overlapping Neymar, of course, back heels him on the first goal and plays a lovely ball across for Neymar to tap in. So for me, Willian was by far and away their best player.
All right, so now I have to segue into this because there's a lot of questions coming in about a certain man, Neymar. Both good and bad. Here we go with both of them. Now, there is at least one productive question before we get to the whole hilarious ones, Brian. So let me start with this. Ansel thinks that this was Neymar's best game at the World Cup. Do you think it was?
I think...
Putting his acting skills aside, we'll get to that in a bit.
I don't think it was far and away his best game. Certainly, he had a goal and an assist. And that assist really, you can't really credit it as an assist because Ochoa makes a great save. That actually is going in the far corner. He's trying to toe poke it. Ochoa makes a great save. And, of course, you get Firmino just there with the best goal as a forward you can ever ask for, because you just see everything. You're just tapping it in. And the easiest goal you can ask for, too. So I think it's questionably his best game, but certainly when you see the antics as you're going to get to it, we don't need that. We just don't need that.
That's what I was going to get to there, because, of course, I mean, CJ wants to know, what do you think of Neymar's acting skills? I have somebody else asking, do you think Neymar can possibly win the Best Actor of the World Cup award? Because, surprisingly enough, now I love Neymar, and I love Brazil. I've picked them to win it all. However, a lot of people believe that he was a victim in this case. You'd be surprised the amount of people that were ready to defend him, and props to them, of course. There's two sides to every story. That little, we don't want to call it a stamp, but the step on by Miguel Layún. Some said Miguel Layún knew what he was doing.
Of course he did.
Or some said, it was harmless. How did you see it?
Well, first of all, of course, Layún knew what he was doing. Secondly, it wasn't a stomp. And that's why I don't think that's
why he didn't get carded.
Inevitably, that's why he didn't get carded. We were up watching the game, and I was saying, at least 2 to 3 times a game, I would have my toes stepped on a lot on purpose, a lot worse than that was. It was more a, to me, it was more a, hey, I'm here, just to let you know. I'll give you a little step on, not a stamp. There wasn't a lot of pressure. He picked the ball up. In slow motion, it looked a little bit worse than it was, but no, I mean, to act like that, first of all, to Best Actor award, no, because no one bought it. I mean, you've got to.
It's becoming like The Boy Who Cried Wolf.
You've got to get rewarded for it.
So he's playing with danger here, because one day he could genuinely be taken down or fouled, and the referee might say, no, play on, because been here before.
Well, if you look at it, it happened, there was a little bit, probably 10, 15 minutes later, Neymar gets a foul called for him, and then gets up, gets the ball, and Guardado is a little bit late to get in there, but gets the ball. Neymar jumps up, but at the same time, I forget the second player comes in and actually gets him. And it should have been a foul, but because of all the acting, the ref didn't think, and so, of course, he didn't get that foul because Guardado got the ball. The second player coming in didn't. But, yeah, referees see it. If you continually try and con a referee, you are inevitably going to start not getting things called that are fouls for you.
All right, well, of course, Neymar and Brazil are still very much into this World Cup. We've gone 8 minutes now in our what should be 10-minute Facebook Live. So let's talk about Mexico because they, of course, are bowing out of the tournament now. And still, I think, plenty to be proud of, Brian. Your biggest takeaways from Mexico for this tournament before we get into the whole Juan Carlos Osorio, will he stay or go?
Yeah, I think it was a good World Cup. And, there's been a lot of people that have brought up the fact that the U.S. aren't there and the fact that, the run and the ability to get into the knockout stage for that many times in a row is exceptional. Now, when you go to this World Cup, I think against Sweden, they let themselves down. Didn't necessarily have their best game throughout. Tactically got it a little bit wrong. Today, I think it was the opposite. You look at the amount of pressure they were able to put on Brazil in that first 15, 20-minute period. And really the lack of fear to go at Brazil, knowing that, if you...
It's very Mexican.
Yeah, well, and they do, this is back to old school. I mean, when we would play Mexico, they would say, hey, he's marking you, this one's marking there, and they'd spread the field out whether you had the ball or you didn't have the ball, and it made it that much more difficult, especially at altitude in Mexico City. But today, you have none of those factors. You've got a Brazilian team that's very comfortable playing under pressure, which you saw, but still gave them fits. Mexico gave Brazil fits in that first 15, 20-minute period. They just weren't able to get that goal. And if they got the goal, it might be a different story. And again, there's no woulda, coulda, shouldas. But I think coming out of this game, they have no reason to look back and say, we played poorly, or this wasn't because the other team was better, because Brazil was better. And, you look at Memo Ochoa, he had an excellent tournament and a really good game today.
All right, well, of course, we know we'll get into the whole Juan Carlos Osorio debate, whether he'll stay or go, on our show when we have Sebi and Herc on ESPN FC later on. But I do have an interesting question here now, because many do believe that Osorio might leave Mexico now because he's just tired of all the stress. He knows that he definitely has put in a good performance as coach. So Anonymous wants to know, but their screen name is Revolucion722. They want to know, Brian, what do you think? Osorio to the U.S. men's team, please? Do you think that's a fair shout?
Listen, I think if you add everything up, it's not impossible. He's coached in MLS. He's done very well in MLS. At the same time, he has experience now coaching a national team in a very high-pressure situation. But the good thing is we've got Ernie Stewart now making those decisions, and he'll make sure he uncovers every option. If there is an American coach that's an option that he feels is a right fit, I'd prefer to sort of keep that that continuity and that sort of history of a U.S. coach understanding what the U.S. national team means and is. That's not to say that the better option isn't an American. It's just I'd like to say that there are some good options there.
All right, perfect. Well, all good things must come to an end, like our Facebook Live. I'm pretty sure we've gone over 10 minutes, but it's been quite exciting now. Thank you so much to Brian McBride. Thanks to all of you guys for all of your questions. Remember, we'll have more talk about the World Cup. Just join the show later on ESPN FC on ESPN+.